The sound of a revolution. The humid morning air at the Sepang International Circuit didn't just carry the usual scent of high-octane fuel and scorched rubber. It carried a warning. As the sun began to bake the Malaysian asphalt on the first day of the 2026 official test, a primal guttural roar echoed from the Yamaha garage, a sound that shouldn't have existed. For decades, the blue brand had been defined by the high-pitched scream of the inline-4. But today, the silence of the paddock was shattered by the deep, aggressive throb of a V4 engine. At the center of this mechanical storm stood an outsider, a man who had spent his career defying physics on production bikes, now gripping the handlebars of a multi-million-dollar prototype. Toprak Razgatlioglu wasn't just making his debut, he was carrying the weight of a Japanese giant that had forgotten how to win. On the other side of the pit wall, the reigning champion, Pecco Bagnaia, sat in his Ducati fortress, surrounded by data and dominance. No one, not the analysts, not the engineers, and certainly not the world champion, expected what would unfold over the next 8 hours. It was a performance that wouldn't just shift the time sheets, it would change the entire narrative of the 2026 season before the first race had even begun. The impossible transition. The transition from World Superbikes to MotoGP is a path littered with the shattered careers of legends. The history books are cruel to those who try to master the Michelin front tire after a lifetime on Pirellis. As Toprak rolled out for his first flying lap on the Pramac Yamaha, the skepticism in the paddock was almost tangible. Critics whispered that his stabbing braking style, the trademark stoppy entries that made him a god in SBK, would be his downfall here. In MotoGP, the bikes are stiff, unforgiving, and demand a surgical flow. Toprak is none of those things, he is chaos. He is a rider who forces a machine to submit to his will. Inside the Yamaha garage, the tension was high. This wasn't just a test for Toprak, it was the debut of Yamaha's secret V4 project. The factory had abandoned decades of tradition to build this bike specifically to fight the Ducati hegemony. If Toprak failed to adapt, it wouldn't just be his reputation on the line, it would be the death of Yamaha's most expensive gamble in history. But as he clicked into fourth gear down the back straight, the stopwatch told a story that left the critics speechless. The surgeon V is the Viking. While Toprak was wrestling his new beast, Pecco Bagnaia was operating with the clinical precision of a grandmaster. Pecco represents the Ducati system, a perfect harmony of rider and electronics. Throughout the morning session, Bagnaia was a metronome. 159.2, 158.5, 158.1. He wasn't just riding, he was gathering intelligence. Ducati had brought a radical new aerodynamic package to Sepang, featuring staircase winglets designed to suck the bike into the tarmac during high-speed direction changes. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Pecco was the surgeon finding the most efficient line with minimal drama. Toprak was the Viking, raiding the apexes with a violence that made the onboard cameras shake. Every time Toprak entered turn 1, the rear wheel of the Yamaha was barely skimming the ground. He was braking 15 meters later than anyone else on the grid. Insiders claimed that the initial telemetry data coming off Toprak's bike was so extreme that Yamaha's lead engineers actually checked the sensors for a malfunction. They couldn't believe a rookie transition could produce those levels of front-end pressure. The V4 revelation. By midday, the heat in Malaysia had reached a punishing 35 degrees C. The track was greasy and grip levels were plummeting. This is usually where Yamaha's old inline-4 would have collapsed. In previous seasons, the M1 would spin its rear tire helplessly coming out of the slow hairpins, losing precious tenths to the Ducati's superior torque. But something was different about the 2026 V4. Observers noted that Toprak was picking the bike up significantly earlier than his predecessor, Fabio Quartararo. The V4 configuration allowed for a narrower engine profile, giving the engineers more freedom with the weight distribution. For the first time in years, the Yamaha didn't look like it was fighting the track, it looked like it was attacking it. Yet despite the technical progress, the gap to Bagnaia remained. The champion was still holding the top spot, a tenth of a second clear of the field, looking every bit the untouchable king. But as the afternoon clouds rolled in, the atmosphere in the paddock shifted from professional curiosity to genuine alarm. Purple sectors and paddock silence. The real drama ignited during the final 90 minutes of the session. Toprak returned to the track after a long debrief with his crew chief. Small adjustments had been made to the engine braking maps and the stiffness of the front forks to accommodate his brutal style. On his third lap of the stint, the timing screens across the circuit flickered. Sector 1, purple. Sector 2, purple. A hush fell over the media center. In the Ducati garage, the mechanics stopped what they were doing and stared at the monitors. This wasn't supposed to happen. Toprak wasn't just fast, he was navigating the technical Sector 3, the most demanding part of Sepang, with a fluidity that defied his lack of experience. He was carrying more corner speed than Bagnaia while maintaining the stability of a rider who had been on this bike for a decade. As he crossed the line, the numbers 1:57:018 flashed up. He had just gone faster than the world champion's best time by nearly 7/10 of a second. The psychological rift. The fallout was immediate. In the paddock, rumors began to swirl that Yamaha had cheated the test by using a non-compliant engine map or a special soft tire that wasn't available to others. But the telemetry didn't lie. Toprak's advantage wasn't coming from a magic engine, it was coming from his ability to maximize the V4's newfound stability under braking. For Bagnaia, this was a psychological blow. He had spent the entire day refining a bike he believed was the benchmark, only to be eclipsed by a satellite rider on a brand new project. Paddock whispers suggested that Bagnaia was visibly frustrated during his post-session debrief, questioning his own team's aerodynamic choices. The stable Ducati suddenly looked vulnerable. The internal conflict was building not just between Yamaha and Ducati, but within the Ducati garage itself. If a newcomer could find that much speed on day one, what would happen when the lights went out for the first race in Qatar? Mental warfare in the garage. In the aftermath of the session, the media scrum around the Pramac Yamaha garage was suffocating. Toprak, ever the showman, remained humble but confident. He spoke of the bike being designed for him, a comment that sent ripples through the factory Yamaha team. There was a growing sense of tension between Toprak and his teammate Jack Miller. Miller, an experienced veteran, found himself nearly a second off the pace of his rookie partner. The dynamic had shifted. Toprak wasn't just a rider, he was becoming the center of the Yamaha universe. This created a political storm, with the factory team support the satellite superstar at the expense of their own riders. Meanwhile, Bagnaia tried to downplay the results in his press conference, insisting that testing times don't win trophies. But his eyes told a different story. He knew that the reign of the Ducati might not just be challenged, it might be over. The twist that changed everything. But just as the paddock was preparing to crown Toprak the new king of Sepang, a final piece of information surfaced that sent a shockwave through the pit lane. As the sun set, Yamaha engineers were seen huddled in a heated discussion with the technical directors of MotoGP. A rumor emerged from a rival team's mechanic that Toprak's bike had been running a prototype electronics package that had not yet been homologated for the 2026 season. Was the Turkish Takeover a result of genuine talent or a calculated technical loophole designed to boost morale? The uncertainty left everyone stunned. If the lap time was illegal, Toprak's dominance was a mirage. But if it was real, then every other team on the grid was currently working with a massive deficit. The day ended not with a celebration, but with a cloud of speculation and a paddock divided. What the engineers discovered next in the data would determine the fate of the entire championship narrative.